It's 1 a.m. on a Friday, and you're standing across the street from a club you can't even see the entrance of because of the crowd. There's a rope. There's a guy in a black jacket scanning IDs faster than you can read them, and there's a line that hasn't moved in 20 minutes. Somebody near the front is arguing about a dress code violation over a pair of sneakers. Inside, you can hear it before you can see it, that low, steady thud that you feel in your chest before you feel it in your ears. And through the tinted glass, you catch a flash of a sparkler moving through the crowd toward a table in the corner, some bottle worth more than your rent moving through a sea of people who pay to be exactly where they're standing. Your first thought, standing outside in the cold watching all of this, is probably something like, "This has to be one of the most profitable businesses on earth. Hundreds of people paying to walk in the door, and then paying again for drinks that cost pennies to make. It looks like a machine that prints money on a schedule." Here's the number that should stop you before you go any further with that assumption. According to industry data compiled across the U.S. bar and nightclub sector, average net profit margins hover somewhere between 2 and 6%. Not 30, not 50, somewhere in the same range as a grocery store. And the businesses that fall below that average, which is most of them, are losing money at a rate of roughly 7% a year. The line outside isn't the story. The line outside is the one good night a struggling business is desperately hopping will cover the other 6. So before we talk about how nightclubs make money, we have to talk about what a nightclub actually is, because the version most people carry around in their head, a bar with better lighting, isn't even close. A bar sells liquid. You sit down, you order a drink, you pay a price, and that price doesn't change based on who's sitting 3 stools down from you. A nightclub sells something completely different, and the easiest way to understand it is to stop thinking about liquor and start thinking about a free-to-play video game. In most successful mobile games, the overwhelming majority of players never spend a dollar. They play for free forever. And the entire business survives on a tiny sliver of players, often less than 2%, who spend enormous amounts of money. Game designers have a blunt name for this group, whales, but here's the part that matters. The free players aren't a charity case the company tolerates. The free players are the product. Without millions of free users filling the game with activity, leaderboards, chat, and competition, the whale has nothing to spend money on. The free crowd creates the environment. The whale pays to feel important inside it. Remove the free players and the whale disappears the next day, because there's nothing left to feel important in front of. A nightclub runs on the exact same engine. On a Saturday night, a huge portion of the room got in free or at a steep discount. The other portion, a much smaller group, is about to spend hundreds or thousands of dollars on a table, and the second group isn't paying for vodka. They're paying to sit slightly elevated above a room that someone else spent all week assembling for free. That's why the guest list exists. That's why certain groups glide past the rope, while others stand in the cold reading a dress code sign. It isn't hospitality, and it isn't prejudice dressed up as policy. It's inventory management for a product that has to be manufactured from nothing, every single week, with zero carryover from the week before. The people responsible for building that inventory are, in almost every club in the country, not employees of the club at all. They're promoters, and they operate more like independent contractors running their own microbusiness inside someone else's building. They get paid per head at the door, commonly somewhere between $8 and $12 per person they bring in, or a cut of whatever their group spends once they're inside, or a flat fee for the night, and often some blend of all three. A promoter with a strong list working 2 or 3 nights a week at a serious venue can be pulling several $1,000s a week just from turnout and table bookings. The ones who cultivate a base of high spenders and celebrity-adjacent regulars can clear well into 6 figures a year, and their entire overhead is a phone. But strip away the glamour of the job title, and what a promoter is actually doing is running a supply chain with a 6-hour shelf life. Every Friday from zero they have to source, qualify, and physically deliver the specific mix of people that makes a room worth paying to sit inside. There is no warehouse. There is no backstock. If the phone stops working on a Thursday afternoon, the room is empty on Saturday, no matter how good the DJ is. Now here's where the actual money shows up, and it's not where people assume. Yes, The bar makes money. Pour costs on spirits typically run somewhere around 18 to 25% of the sale price, meaning the club keeps most of every dollar poured across the counter. That's a solid margin on paper, but it's not the engine. The engine is the table. Bottle that costs the venue roughly $20 to $30 wholesale gets sold at a table for $250 minimum, frequently climbing past $600 or $700, and at flagship rooms considerably more than that once the table minimum kicks in. Table minimums, the amount a group is contractually required to spend before they're even allowed to sit down, start around $500 to $1,000 at a serious venue and escalate sharply from there on a big night. Do the arithmetic on a single table and you'll find a markup of somewhere between 8 and 20 times cost, sometimes more, and almost none of that premium has anything to do with the liquid in the bottle. Nobody buying a table is doing it because they specifically crave that brand of vodka. They're paying for elevation, sightlines, a velvet rope of their own, and most importantly, proximity to the crowd the promoter spent the week assembling. At the extreme end of the market, this model gets almost absurd. Multiple Las Vegas venues individually generate revenue in the neighborhood of $80 to just over $100 million a year, and the 10 highest-grossing clubs on the Strip combined pull in figures north of $350 million annually. That's not because Vegas has better DJs or louder speakers than Miami or New York. It's because Vegas solved the two structural problems that quietly kill nightclubs everywhere else. And understanding that fix tells you almost everything about why this business is so brutal outside of a casino floor. If you're the kind of person who likes seeing a machine get taken apart piece by piece, this is usually the point where subscribing makes sense, because the next part is where the whole illusion falls apart. Problem 1 is rent. A standalone club anywhere else is signing a commercial lease that runs somewhere between $5,000 and $20,000 a month for a space that, structurally, can only generate revenue during a tiny window, roughly 6 hours a night, 2 or 3 nights a week. That's a building sitting dark and unproductive the vast majority of every single day, while rent, insurance, licensing fees, and loan payments run on a 24-hour, 7-day clock that doesn't care whether Saturday was slow. A Vegas nightclub, by contrast, is built inside a hotel casino's existing footprint. The lease, the permitting, the electrical capacity, the plumbing, all of it already exists as part of a resort that's making money around the clock from gaming, rooms, and restaurants. The club's effective rent is close to nothing, because it's riding on top of an asset that was already profitable before the DJ ever plugged in. Problem 2 is the crowd, and this is the bigger one. A standalone club has to manufacture its audience from absolute zero every single week. That's the entire job of the promoter network described earlier, and it's expensive, unreliable, and exhausting. A casino resort has tens of thousands of tourists walking through its lobby every single day, people who already flew or drove specifically to spend money on entertainment, gambling, and nightlife. The club doesn't need to go find its customers. The customers are already upstairs, sleeping off last night's version of the same room. When your two biggest and most unpredictable costs, real estate and customer acquisition, are effectively subsidized by a larger, already profitable business, everything downstream of that, bottle sales, door revenue, table margins, turns into pure profit in a way that's structurally impossible for a standalone club to replicate. Which brings us to why the standalone version of this business fails at such a staggering rate. The commonly cited figures put roughly 3/4 of independent nightclubs out of business within 2 years, and the number climbs even higher by the 5-year mark. It's not because people stopped going out, nightlife spending has kept climbing for years. It's because the model itself is structurally hostile to survival. Consider the cash flow problem alone. If you're only truly profitable 2 or 3 nights a week, one bad Saturday, a rainstorm, a competing venue booking a bigger act on the same night, and you've just lost a meaningful chunk of your monthly revenue while your fixed costs didn't move an inch. New owners consistently underestimate how much cash they'll burn while waiting for a reputation to build, and by the time word of mouth catches up, the reserves are already gone. Then there's the fact that, unlike almost any other retail product, the nightclub's inventory can simply leave and never come back. A restaurant's menu doesn't walk out the door overnight. A clothing store's inventory doesn't wake up and decide to shop somewhere else. But a club's actual product, the specific arrangement of people that made Tuesday's table sales possible, makes a fresh decision every single weekend about whether to show up again. When a hotter room opens 2 blocks away, or the music policy shifts, or the crowd simply decides the spot has gone stale, revenue doesn't erode gradually. It falls off a cliff, and the tables that used to sell out by 11 p.m. start going dark one by one with no warning. On top of all that sits legal exposure most first-time owners never fully price in. Liquor licensing alone can be its own nightmare. In states that cap the number of licenses available, buying one on the secondary market can run anywhere from tens of thousands of dollars into 7 figures before a single customer has walked in. Overserving liability adds another layer. A single incident involving an intoxicated patron can result in a court judgment in the tens of thousands of dollars from one bad night, and a serious enough violation can cost a venue its liquor license entirely. At which point, license or not, there's no business left to run. So if someone actually wanted to open one of these, here's roughly what they'd be signing up for. A small room, capacity under 200, generally needs somewhere between $150,000 and $650,000 to open once working capital is included. A mid-sized venue climbs into the range of $500,000 to $2.5 million. A high-end, large-capacity club with serious production value starts north of $1.5 million and can run past $9 million before opening night. Add a contingency of at least 20% on top of whatever number you land on, because something you didn't plan for will show up every single time. Survive the first year, and margins for a small, stabilized club typically settle somewhere around 10 to 20%. A well-run mid-sized venue can push into the 20 to 30% range, and only the largest, bottle service-heavy rooms with strong brand pull touch 30 to 40%. Those numbers describe the survivors, not the average. Remember, the industry-wide average sits closer to single digits. Here's the layer underneath all of that math, and it's the part that actually explains why this business behaves so differently from everything else. On any given Saturday night, 2 separate transactions are happening in the exact same room at the exact same time. In the first transaction, the club sells an experience, music, lighting, energy, the feeling of being somewhere exclusive, to the crowd that paid the cover charge or got in free. In the second transaction, the club sells that same crowd as the product to the small group of people buying tables. The bottle buyer isn't purchasing liquor. They're purchasing a slightly elevated vantage point over a room full of people who were specifically recruited to be there. One group is the customer. The same group, from a different angle, is also the merchandise. No other retail business runs both sides of that equation inside the same 4 walls at the same moment, which is exactly why the margins can swing from single-digit disaster to 8-figure success, depending entirely on whether the room got filled correctly that night. So the next time you're standing outside a club watching the line snake around the block and the bass rattling the window, you're not looking at a party waiting to happen. You're looking at a live inventory system with a 6-hour expiration date, being assembled in real time by a promoter you'll never meet, priced differently for every person walking through that door, and sold twice, once to the crowd, and once as the crowd. The line isn't proof the club is thriving. It's the raw material arriving on schedule, and whether the whole operation turns a profit tonight depends entirely on whether it shows up again next Saturday. If this changed how you look at that line outside a club, let me know in the comments what business you want broken down next, and subscribe if you want more of these.